Hello everyone, today is going to be kind of more of a talk on how I've structured my channel as a content creator and kind of what I will be doing going forward. So the first thing I want to talk about is just like, obviously I have not been making content very consistently recently. I have picked up a second job working with some other things kind of on the side. And that's been one of the main reasons I haven't really been focusing as much on content. I do plan to get back into the content creation side of things, and I will quickly explain why I'm kind of in a conundrum. So the first things first is, obviously, like for the longest time, my channel didn't have a very good direction. We didn't really know, like, was I doing fighting games? Was I gonna do, variety games? And we kind of finally settled on, I'm going to give as much information or thought or input on the game that I enjoy playing. So that doesn't have to necessarily be fighting games. That could be Dead by Daylight. That could be a shooter in the future. That could be anything, right? And that's why, like, when you go on my Discord, like, you see, like, the list of games, because those are the games that I currently play or want to play. So if you're interested in the games that I'm going to be talking about, those are going to be the games. Now, obviously, I've said this before and I'll say this again, this channel is mainly a fighting game channel. So you're going to see mostly fighting games on this channel. You will see things like Dead by Daylight every once in a while, but for the most part, you're going to see fighting games because fighting games is my favorite genre of all time and I really enjoy playing them. So with that said, why have I branched off from MK into other fighting games? A lot of people think that, and this is kind of the main focus of the video today, so you're probably going to see some gameplay coming up really soon, but a lot of people think that the reason why I stopped playing Mortal Kombat is because the game was dead, and that is not necessarily true. There's actually a lot of stuff going on with Mortal Kombat. Coliseum just had a tournament, and so Destroyer has been having tournaments. Foxy is still playing every single day. There's plenty of, obviously, it's not as big as it was a few months ago when we thought that we were going to have support, but the game is still going strong. This is not a dead game at all. At least not on the console side of things, right? Which is not very hard. I have a console now, so I could easily just play on console if I wanted to. So that's not an issue. Like, competing is not an issue at all. The reason why I have moved over to other fighting games is because of the conundrum that I've seen in the FGC as a whole, which is fine because there's a few arguments you can make here if you're on the other end of the argument that I'm about to make. So the big thing that I've noticed is that there are definitely, not necessarily cliques, but there's definitely a group of players that stick to the game that they play. And they peak at the game that they play while not really learning too many fundamentals of other games. Now, I'm not saying that these are, I'm just going to say like the average player. I'm not going to say like a pro player or anything like that. I do notice it with pro players, but I don't really want to say that because I feel like pro players are kind of on a bigger scale than we are as content creators and hardcore fans of the game or competitors. So obviously, like, that is kind of like one of the big things that I've noticed as a content creator is that, like, people stick to one particular style of fighting game, or you'll have, every once in a while you'll have a content creator that actually plays different fighting games because they understand fundamentally, and this is kind of the same conclusion I came to, multiple variety of fighting games just makes you not only a better content creator, but it allows you to reach more people. So those are two huge, big advantages to branching off and playing other fighting games. So back to the whole thing. I personally think that you, as a player, it's no different than when you play Mortal Kombat 11, right? And you pick one character and you stick with that character throughout the game's life cycle. You're not gonna get better playing one character. I've said this before, the way you get really good at a fighting game is, first of all, you learn that character really well, so maybe you do put the first, 500 hours to 1,000 hours into that character. But then you branch off and you play other characters. That will make you understand the fundamentals of the fighting game. Or not the fundamentals, but the meta of the fighting game. This is extremely important when competing because, I quickly figured out that Mortal Kombat 11 is a strike throw game that doesn't really reward the strike, but but there are some players or some characters that do get rewarded for the throw, or there's some characters that just basically completely forego all of that strike throw. They do 50-50s, or they do a mid command grab, which involves you not, getting the main way or the main counter to a throw in that game that makes the throw not in your favor, right? Like, I was able to figure all of this out by just playing a lot of characters, right? Like, Katana is the perfect example of that. She's not very good at strike throw. She takes a big risk when going for throws, and she has to go for zoning, right? But then you have other characters like Noob Saibot that don't have to take many risks off throws because he can just zone you out, and then he's got a 9-frame mid, so you can't even try to guess. Same thing with characters like Frost. So I was able to quickly figure out, okay, this character clearly doesn't deal with this problem as much, right? So I was able to get better at the game much quicker playing more characters compared to just playing one. So with that said, it's no different with fighting games. Like, if you play Mortal Kombat and that's all you play, then when you branch off and you play another fighting game, you won't be as good at that fighting game just simply because you've only played one fighting game. Now, the fundamentals of Mortal Kombat will allow you to get better at the next game, the next fighting game you play, and that's how, I believe that's how players like Sonic Fox are able to play so many fighting games at once, because Sonic Fox, they have gotten to the point to where they played so many different fighting games that they're able to understand the fundamentals and what they need to be looking for in the meta. And it's no different than the games that I have purposely selected for this channel, right? So for example, I'm not a huge fan of MKX, but the game that's coming up that I'm going to be playing is King of Fighters 15, right? And that has a lot of MKX vibes. 4 different jumps, really strong throws, really good mix-ups, really strong zoning. Like, it all has MKX vibes, right? That is the polar opposite of MK11. MK11 is much more neutral focused, based off of reads, figuring out where your opponent's going to be in a certain amount of space. Obviously, this isn't every character, but for the most part, most characters, there's a clear counter to them when it comes to like footsies and playing footsies and stuff like that, right? King of Fighters is going to be way different, right? And then going back to Street Fighter, I've been playing Street Fighter lately, more Street Fighter than MK actually. And Street Fighter 5 is a neutral based game. It's based off of playing footsies, doing spacing, not doing that much damage, but using your space to your advantage and playing a solid neutral game. This is very clear with characters like the character I chose, Sakura, right? Because Sakura, she literally does the same thing as Johnny Cage. You do the string and then you end in fireball and then it resets neutral, right? Those are perfect examples of kind of how fighting games cross over each other and how you can like keep your turn and how you can, reset your turn and things like that, right? So the reason why I'm saying all this is because I feel like the one of the other big problems in the FGC is that people stick to their fighting game, right? And it's almost like players are like, hey, come play my fighting game's better. Or hey, come play this fighting game's better, right? Instead of trying out the game that you like for example, right? So here's a perfect example. So if I go and I play Street Fighter 5 and someone's like, hey, you should play Street Fighter 5. It's a really solid game. It's really good to play, blah, 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 right? This was recommended to me by a Mortal Kombat player, right? So it wasn't that big of a deal because I was moving from Mortal Kombat to Street Fighter and he had already played Mortal Kombat. But what about the players that tell you, hey, come play my game, but then they don't play your game? Now, I'm not saying that I want them to play my game because my game is better, but what I am saying is that the way that they'll get better at fighting games overall and understand fundamentals, because people say this all the time, you should look at fighting games different from each other, but the thing is that's not true. All fighting games, it's like biology and science and chemistry and physics. They all connect to each other and they all have similar fundamentals and bases off of how they work, right? So for example, like with the fireball thing, Sakura doing the fireball is no different than Johnny Cage doing the fireball and resetting neutral. It's the same kind of concept, right? And that's how fighting games run. That's how they are. That's how, it doesn't matter. Now, yeah, some fighting games will have way more distinctions compared to the other ones. But for the most part, they're still going to have some fundamental things that you need to know that will allow you to get better from fighting game to fighting game. And it'll allow you to lab and understand exactly what you need to do, right? So here's another example. was playing against a birdie today, and he was doing the command grab, the full screen command, or a mid-screen command grab, right? And it reminded me a lot of Jax's command grab, right? And with Jax's command grab, the way that you beat it, there's two ways to beat it. You move around, right? So you can bait it out and stop him from being able to hit you with the command grab because you know, outspace it. The other way is you duck, right? So in this game, obviously, like, command grabs in Street Fighter are all mids. In back-to-block games, grabs are always all mids. There are no highs in back-to-block games, from what I understand. So the goal there, you know, against Birdie is to either jump or move around, backdash, you know, move, but just not be occupied in one specific space where he can just command grab you from mid-screen because you're not moving. And these are examples of how you can get better at different fighting games even though you've never played them. And it's one of the main reasons that I really think that, you know, when people say, hey, like, you should come play my fighting game, well, they should come play yours too. You know, they should come check yours out and see what yours is about. Because every fighting game plays different, and every fighting game has its place in the world. And I think this will kind of remove elitism and, like, oh, this game is better, or you need to grind this game. Now, I'm not saying that I want everyone to play my fighting game. I do think that there is a place for it, though. I do think that MK11 is a solid fighting game. I think that all of the complaints that we have for that game aren't as nearly as bad as the previous NRS games, and it actually makes it a solid game to play. You know, looking at Street Fighter V, like, is just a perfect example. Like, Street Fighter V has things like V-Trigger. Like, trust me, people will always tell you my fighting game has better neutral, my fighting game has better blah 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 fundamentals, whatever. But, like, I look at all these other games and it's all bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, it just is. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's the thing I want to stress so much, right? If a game has a character that has a mid-screen command grab, and then you complain about it, there's probably another fighting game that's the same way. And that's the thing, is usually there is. Like, I'm able to make an easy comparison between the two. So the complaints are usually not very valid. You know, that's just how some games play. Some games are different. Some games have back to block, some games have more oppressive fireballs, some games have crazy command grabs. It doesn't really matter. You know, for the most part, they're more similar than they are different. And that's the thing that makes this kind of whole statement really important. So anyway, final thing going forward and the future of this channel, I'm going to be playing multiple fighting games. You'll probably not see that much Dead by Daylight content or other games outside of fighting games. I have 3 different fighting games that I am enjoying playing. Well, I will be enjoying playing, hopefully. I haven't played King of Fighters 15 yet, but I feel like I'm going to like that game. So King of Fighters 15, Street Fighter 5, and Mortal Kombat. You're going to see a lot of that, and when Street Fighter 5 ends and Street Fighter 6 comes out, you'll be seeing me play Street Fighter 6. So that is just kind of my goal. I like all these games. I've had a lot of fun playing all of them. Just because you see me rage doesn't mean I don't enjoy them. I've enjoyed all of them. I've gotten really good at MK11, and I feel like that was a good basis for me to start and branch off and play other games. So anyway, I'll see you guys later. Have fun playing fighting games, and bye.